it was a very tempting and almost illogical move on his part. I keep thinking about Bill Harvey. Call Harvey and say, look, there's some things I want to have done. I mean, Harvey didn't want just an additional CIA salary. He wanted to move on. And LBJ could do that for him if he were president.
Right.
He couldn't do much for Harvey or anybody as vice president. That was why he used Harvey as being available and corrupt. It was very easy for even the vice president to start working with Harvey or anybody else. Just say, I want you to do this, I want you to do that. And making sure that they had money that was not their own to do whatever the LBJ wanted to have done, so that when the president was assassinated, the vice president was right there and ready to move along. It doesn't speak well for our democracy at that particular time. He, in my opinion, had an almost maniacal urge to become president. He regarded JFK as he was, in fact, an obstacle to achieving that. He could have waited for JFK to finish out his term and then undoubtedly a second term. So that would have put the LBJ at the head of a long list of people who were waiting for some change in the executive branch. Harvey was just a very strange and complicated individual. A lot of people have sort of suggested that he was, that alcohol had taken control of him. First of all, he never should have been put in that position. I don't think that he had a pristine connection with anybody. Always had a gun on him, yeah. Particularly in Rome. Harvey even carried guns into restaurants, and he would pull them out, slap them down on the table to the dismay of other diners, and then he'd settle down to an afternoon of drinking, not eating much, but because he was way overweight, but certainly drinking. He had been a deputy to Angleton and very deeply involved in counter-espionage activities.
Well, Harvey had written in a memo at one point when he was running the executive action program that he wanted to use Corsicans.
Yeah, wanted to use what?
Corsicans.
Yeah.
As hitmen. Do you think it's possible that when he was in Rome that he might have recruited a Corsican assassin to kill Kennedy?
Yes. It is possible. I mean, it's one thing to set yourself up in splendid isolation, and it's another thing to use that isolation as a tool,
right,
so that you're not an immediate suspect in the case of a capital crime.
Right, right, because he was in Rome.
Is that understandable?
Yeah,
Okay.
very. My understanding is that Harvey had a very severe clash with Bobby Kennedy around the time of the missile crisis, and that Kennedy basically
I think it was
said, "Get rid
earlier
of
than
this
that.
guy."
And he posted an old slogan somewhere in the agency premises that said, the tree of liberty must be nourished by the blood of patriots. And this incensed Bobby Kennedy. And they clashed on that particular point seems ridiculous. You would think that Bobby would have embraced that particular philosophy, but he did not. And I guess he figured that Harvey was trying to steal some of the glory of whatever was going on in those days.
During the Cuban Missile Crisis, everything was extremely tense. And suddenly it was discovered that Harvey had sent a team of people into Cuba, and the Kennedys were very concerned that this crisis might explode into nuclear war. And Robert Kennedy particularly was in a rage when he heard that this loose cannon had added a further element of unpredictability to the situation.
Harvey hated the Kennedys. After the Cuban Missile Crisis, he had a confrontation with Bobby Kennedy that virtually ended his career, exiling him to an intelligence station in Rome.
We had a terrible experience with the ones that were handling it at the time of the missile crisis. They were going to send 60 people into Cuba right during the missile crisis. Nobody knew what they were doing, and we pinned it down to the fellow he was supposed to be in charge, and he said we planned it because the military wanted it done, and I asked the military, and they never heard of it.
Oh my God.
This is the same fellow who put the tunnel under Berlin, and so he was, you remember that tunnel in 1948? They constructed a tunnel under and built it up into the intelligence office of which was a hell of a project. But he did that better than he did this. Of course, I was furious because I said you were dealing with people's lives. And the best of the Cubans, and they're the ones that volunteer, and then you're going to go off with a half-ass operation such as this. We had a meeting at the Pentagon. I never saw it, I've never seen him since.